my process is I always aim under the deer.
Yep.
So I draw it on. Like a lot of people are overbowed, I think, and they have to point the thing up in the air to get it drawn back. Then they come down to the target. I try to draw back with as little movement as possible, and I aim like at the feet of the deer, and I draw back that way, and then always coming from the bottom up,
right?
Because especially if you're excited, and you're going to pull the trigger a little bit early. There's nothing worse than if you aim go from the top, and you get a lot of people. I believe they get on the animal and they don't quite get to the middle of it, and they get excited and they shoot.
Well, you
want to be below the center.
Yeah.
You want to be at the splitting them in thirds. You want to be at the top of the bottom third. And if you don't get there and that deer drops a little bit, it happens. It still happens. It happens so much. So I think, and you should train yourself on your targets when you shoot. Every time you shoot, always do everything the same. Get that muscle memory built and draw back at its feet and then come up. And if you get really excited and you only get 2 inches onto that deer, you're probably going to get him if you have the yardage right and it's close enough.
Is that how you do it, Toxie?
No, yeah. For different reasons. I definitely always come from bottom up, no matter what it took to draw, because, I want to be able to keep eye contact exactly what the deer's doing all the time. If you're above that, it's blocked out. You can't even see them, and it's kind of a mystery. So to me, it means a lot, even in those seconds, to know exactly what's going on with the deer. If it might be fixing to be on alert, maybe fixing to take a step or whatever. I just think it's so much better to come from below up for the reasons he said too, but especially so you need to keep, all the way through the process, you need to keep eye contact with the deer.
Because you have a favorite way of doing it?
No, I always start below and come up.
Yes.
And I went through a period, and Paul, I don't know if Paul's ever had, but I went through a period we were shooting a lot of NFAA stuff. And I, for some reason, got in the habit of coming above and dropping down, and I got target panic. And it got so bad with me, I found a book on target panic, and I read it, I don't know, 2 or 3 times, and finally overcame it. But one of the big things I did was starting below and easing up and putting a target on the backside of it was crazy. So
what are some other important points on technique? I have to say that I had a coach at one time. I got pretty good with a bow. 40 yards, I could hit this, bullseye size of a pop can pretty much every time. I had a coach just teach me some simple things about technique, and it went from the bottom of a pop can to the size of a quarter in 2 weeks, just by no more wrist torque and stance and how I was doing specific things, and it really improved my shooting. What are some important things about technique?
Well, good habits, right? Like practice is supposed to make perfect, but unfortunately it makes permanent. And I think, jumping back a little bit to the last conversation, I think a lot of people, when they shoot in their yard or when they start shooting, they're shooting too heavy. And when they pull back, they point the thing up in the air, and then now the habit is to go from the top down. And going from the bottom up is, I think, between all the benefits that we both talked about, it really makes a lot of sense to do that. So, building those really good habits. I like to think about, if I'm having target panic is, I'm assuming that you went to a pro shop or you have a friend or somebody that can set your bow up so that everything is set up correctly and your bow is tuned. Because, if that doesn't happen, if your draw length's too long, your bow's out of tune, your arrows aren't properly spined, probably whatever you do, it's going to be hard to get to that, you hitting the quarter every time, right? So once you get to that stage of the game, where your bow is set up and everything, and you're probably, and that you can't, torquing the bow, maybe you had to adjust the grip, but torque is something that I always look at a lot. And some bows, a lot of people, if they had a really bow that they liked, they'll say, I used to have this PSC and I could shoot the daylights out of that thing. Odds are they probably didn't torque it because of the grip, because of the cam, because of the axle, whatever it was. So, but I like to think, I guess, if I start to get target panicky, that's probably my biggest issue. And as we get older and a little shakier, your brain wants to speed up and you want to shoot. But I focus on breathing and and something other than aiming. And I don't care if it's like putting the same amount of weight on both feet. It's kind of weird. You go back next time you feel panicky, think about like, and all of a sudden you'll feel like almost like, it's hard to balance. It's like, okay, I'm a little, I'll try to get the same amount of weight on each foot. Now my brain is thinking about that. And luckily my brain can't do too much at one time, and then the pin's just laying right on the target and I can execute a shot, so, I think everybody comes up with little tricks or little things to, to try to, get them settled in and relaxed. And then the last podcast we did, we were talking about the moment of truth. We talked a lot about that. And I talk about that all the time. I like to focus on breathing. And I film a lot of people. I've been around a lot of people. I watch a lot of, video and just hear a lot of stories. And I think people tend to hold their breath when they get excited. And I just focus on getting, if you're excited, you know it. Okay, he's at the right yardage and he needs to turn a little bit. Just focus on breathing. Get lots of oxygen into your brain, because if you're sitting there trying to be quiet and still and you're holding your breath, all of a sudden you're going to do something crazy. A lot of things can happen, and most of it ain't very good. You know what I mean? But that would probably be, just off the top of my head. There's a lot more to it than that, but there were some things that can help people.
Sure.
What about your anchor point or your anchoring? It seems like folks are not. They're trying to touch the string less or with less pressure these days.
It makes a lot of sense. The let off is getting higher. It's easier to torque the string one way or the other. I like to come back, and when I come back, I literally just barely touch my nose to the string and keep everything clean so it can break straight away. And honestly, if you have left to right problems when you're shooting, it's going to be something. Your draw length, you're torquing the bow, people that pull that thing right into their face and it comes out and around, if you do it the same every time, right, it's not going to matter. But now you put a face mask on, and now it's cold, or now you got an extra jacket on, and but like practicing with all your stuff and being able to replicate what you do in practice, is going to be very important. But yeah, the let off. The new bows, it seems like, man, like you're hardly holding anything, and it's very easy to torque that string away. So, just very lightly touch it into your anchor point and, and focus on aiming,